Hey guys, what a week again for NIO stock, and it's really sometimes like going 0 to 100 in a NIO car and then suddenly hitting the brakes. So it's a roller coaster, and I hope most of you viewers are still holding and not getting shaken out by the stock fluctuations, because NIO can be volatile. If you cannot take the heat, then better don't invest in NIO. It's going to be like this for quite some while, I guess. However, I truly believe that there's only a handful stocks like NIO out there that have a clear growth trajectory, what could be in 5 to 10 years time, and a clear big vision that can have a huge impact on the industry, on the customers, and also on its shareholders. So on this channel, I'm going deep on such opportunities. I'm not throwing around stock names every week. It takes me a while to identify the next NIOs and make some videos about it. So bear with me. We've got some exciting stuff coming up in this regard. If you want to be part of this journey, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and that really goes a long way. So in this video, I'm going into a controversial topic among EV enthusiasts, and that is about battery swapping versus supercharging. So if you watch this video till the end, you'll see the pros and the cons of battery swapping, my live reporting from on the ground in China, my due diligence with a German engineer living in Suzhou, and my views about the future of this technology and its impact on NIO and its business, and thereby also on its share price. So let's just dive into it. And this week we had a wonderful cooperation with a leading German EV YouTube channel. The guys from Next Move run a rental business for electric cars and also a YouTube channel. And among all of the things that they're doing, they were the first to have a Model Y in Europe, and they made Tesla cars and other EVs popular in Germany before others did. So check them out if you can speak German. In this video, I'm going to dive into that video, and I will add a little bit of my English commentary on it and add it here to my channel so that the English speakers can also watch it. So last year, when we didn't have this awful Roni situation, I was in China doing some checks on NIO. By that time, I was already invested. So I met with Richard, a German engineer working in Suzhou. He told me that he previously owned a Tesla Model S in Germany and Daimler cars. And when he went to China, he wanted to buy a Tesla again, actually. However, it was just too expensive because of the import taxes, so he decided to go for a NIO. And when I asked him about his decision and purchase experience, this is what he told me.
Ich war vorbereitet, alles zu beanstanden. Wenn irgendwas nicht gepasst hat, habe ich es sofort beanstandet.
Ja.
Dann kam das Auto, so wie es jetzt ist eigentlich. War nix. Ich habe echt die Liste durchgeguckt.
Ja.
Nix. Ja. Ich habe geguckt, wie ist die Qualität hier, ob das alles funktioniert, alles lose, so. Alles war super. War echt nichts zu beanstanden.
So when Richard told me about his experience, and you know, as a German engineer, really positive surprise by NIO's quality and so on, this was just some of those data points that I collected with my qualitative research, and for me that was a big motivator to keep on doing my research on NIO and also to be going in long as an investor. So that day we went on picking a battery swapping station via the NIO app. As always, everything mobile and digitally, extremely well designed with touch points like the AI assistant Nomi. And when we arrived, I wanted to check out how long it actually takes to do the swapping. So here is the full process. First, it took around 3 minutes to park the car in the swapping station, getting everything arranged. There's a worker who's helping doing that. And then it took another minute for the worker to start the swapping station process. The car had to be lifted up, and this took around 15 seconds. And then the screws of the car were unlocked and the empty battery was removed. This took around 45 seconds in total. Then a new battery was placed into the car and the lid was locked again, taking around 3 minutes in total. Another 30 seconds later, the car touched ground again, and after 2 minutes, the car was ready to leave the swapping station and everything was completed. By that point in time, we could have just taken off and drive away. So in total, the actual battery swapping process took 5 to 6 minutes. However, if you consider everything that's happening before and after the swapping, including that, it can take 10 to 15 minutes. At the time that we were filming, the battery swap was entirely free for Richard and other NIO customers, and he used to do such swaps at a weekly basis actually. NIO has now performed over 500,000 of such battery swaps with the users, and they have more than 125 of such stations in the entire country. So you can drive actually from Shenzhen to Beijing using those swapping stations along the highway. Now, how to rate this kind of technology? Is this really a game changer? How does it compare to supercharging with Tesla, for instance? So I'll start with the cons here. And well, the battery swapping today is already faster than supercharging. However, not that much of a difference actually. If, for instance, we assume 50 minutes as a conservative case here, you can also add around 80% of battery capacity with some other EVs using supercharging. So one could argue, well, you don't actually win that much time, and supercharging is also still improving, so it may actually catch up. And despite the fact that NIO is also introducing a new swapping technology that will do actually swaps without lifting the car and thereby reducing it to only 3 minutes, still supercharging doesn't look to be much slower in this regard. Also, you saw that the process today still involves manual labor. So currently for the parking in the car in the station and starting the swapping process and everything like that, you need somebody who's operating the system. So this is also implying some cost here. And I would assume that it should be more expensive to build a swapping station than rather just setting up the superchargers. So Tesla or Ionity's way in Europe might be a little bit leaner in terms of scaling and the cost structure here. Also, waiting times might be an issue at swapping stations. As we've seen in the video, there was a guy behind us who had actually to wait until we finished our swapping. And then you could also argue that there was other companies before NIO like Better Place, which unfortunately went bankrupt, but they were using this technology as well as Tesla, who have actually been using it before but then ditched the technology. So no, it wasn't NIO who invented it in the first place. However, it looks like NIO is the one who is trying to bring it to the masses actually. And this brings me to all of the pros regarding battery swapping. And the first plus point is that it is indeed faster than conventional charging, and in most cases even faster than the supercharging, at least in theory. And this may actually have an effect on first-time EV buyers who have no experience of charging vehicles, and well, they may still believe what petrol heads or the mainstream media is claiming, that it's a major issue to charge your EV. Actually, I would say everybody who has owned a Tesla or another electric car would agree that it's rather a change of the mindset. Today, it's not really a big issue anymore to charge overnight. However, in China, the situation is also a little bit different to what we're used into the West, because Chinese living in big compounds and usually don't have the option to install a wallbox charger. So in the big cities in China, it is actually an issue to charge at home. Another positive of battery swapping is the ability to change defective batteries quickly. So last year, NIO managed to exchange batteries with a battery recall quickly for each of their cars that has been sold because there was an issue with the battery. It also has the ability to switch to batteries that have a higher density or new battery technology in the future with better capacity. And again, it helps the mindset of the consumer who is maybe worrying about buying in early into such a new technology. So then there's another big argument, which is battery leasing. This, in my views, is the most bullish argument, and particularly in China. So NIO can undercut competitors' pricing for their EVs. So if you see here, if I select to lease the battery instead of buying it, that cuts off 100,000 RMBs or roughly 13,000 euros from the purchase price initially, and that makes EVs or NIO cars more accessible to people who don't want to put up front too much money. Instead, they can lease the battery aside, and even after reselling the car, well, they only lease the battery, so the battery degradation doesn't have a big effect. And all of these services and arguments in business model innovations NIO combines under the topic of battery as a service. So this is where it's getting really exciting in my view. So NIO has the chance to spearhead a national rollout of this technology and to create a national standard that will be adopted by more EV makers in China. we can already see the government support for it. So in the latest introduced subsidies for EVs, we saw a cap of subsidies for cars over a certain limit, a purchase price that goes beyond a certain limit. So unless they have a battery swapping technology in place. So this means effectively that NIO is the only EV company that gets the subsidies despite the cars are more expensive priced than the current cap. So this is a clear support and advantage in China. Others should be willing to adopt this model and think about what happens if other car manufacturers, for instance even Volkswagen, need to adapt this swapping technology in China in order to access the swapping stations and to make use of the government subsidies. So this would mean that NIO Power as a business could become a national aggregator of battery swapping firms. The effect on NIO's bottom line could really be enormous, so they could pool the purchasing of battery capacity with the suppliers, as they will not only use NIO's fleet but also other providers' battery swapping fleets, resulting in better access and cheaper batteries for NIO. NIO Power could also take a service cut out of every battery swap beyond NIO's own cars. And all of this is a defendable technology asset that NIO has applied with more than 1,200 patents regarding to this battery swapping station. So they could even license this out and collect license fees for this technology, franchising it, the swapping technology nationwide. In my last video where I talked about the NIO's bank loan of 1.4 billion US dollars, I already made the assumption that NIO will be investing money largely in the efforts of creating this battery as a service services with suppliers, partners, and also investing into the battery leasing aspect. So the more and more I dig deeper into that and think about it, it all makes sense and it's coming nicely together. And I'm really getting excited about the financial implications of the rollout of such a battery as a service model. So I would sum it up as this: the battery swapping is really not so much about supercharging versus battery swapping. I think the discussions among the EV enthusiasts are really maybe a little bit sidetracked here and going into the wrong direction. The strength of this model is much more about the customer experience, alleviating some of the pain and fears of new EV adopters, and it opens for flexibility in terms of pricing, upgradability, and just takes out away some of the doubts about e-mobility in general. So this is really also the strength of NIO, to be customer-centric thinking. So in combination with the national rollout, government support, and the enormous potential of NIO Power, I couldn't be more excited about what it means as a future revenue stream for NIO. And I believe it will help manifest a defendable, unique selling proposition and opens the possibility for NIO to execute on their vision to become a user enterprise that is first and foremost a mobility lifestyle brand and not depending too much solely on the car sales. So I believe many conventional analysts do not see the business potential and the disruptive implications on the business model for this industry yet. And if NIO successfully executes on that, then I think the bank analysts will be waking up to its potential and also reflect that in higher price targets for NIO's share price. So I'm planning to include my assumptions for NIO Power and those kind of revenue streams in my next update to my Excel sheet about NIO valuation and the napkin business case. I will make sure that the Patreon supporters of our channel receive the update first. So I hope this helps you guys better understand what NIO is doing, how they are different to other providers out there, what could be potentially disruptive about their business if they succeed with it, and also what could be actually driver of the stock price in both the near term as well as in the long term future. So as always, if you enjoyed that, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, stay tuned for more videos. I'm currently working on some really exciting topics about NIO and other stocks in the background. I hope I can finish one more video over the weekend, depends on how the weekend goes. Anyways, have a great weekend and see you in the next video.